88.5 WQOX, Memphis, Tennessee. It is Brother John, your brother from another mother like no other. And we told you all day, we've been telling you all week that we have a new show on 88.5 called T with Superintendent Toni Williams. And she's in the building today, ladies and gentlemen, with our second installment of the show. And, you know, you never know who she's going to bring with her on the show. So today we got
Mr. Kevin Woods. And I will say with Mr. Woods, definitely he is raw, he is authentic, and he's going to give it to us today and give us some of his experiences throughout being a board member with the fun topic of infrastructure.
Well, thank you, Superintendent. And John Best, thank you for having me, man. Listen, that's making me sound old, man.
Man, we've been here. You was the first one that did a show with us back in the day.
First one on here, man. All you do. Look forward to the conversation, Chief.
All right, now who else we got with us? Now this young lady I see at the board meetings always giving like actual facts and breaking down all kind of stuff.
Let me tell you about this woman. This is Michelle Stewart, the director of financial. I'm trying to recruit you to finance. She's been around the district for a long time, and she's seen a lot. She's seen the zoning, the enrollment. Michelle, tell us a little bit about what else you're responsible for in the district.
So that's right. We do attendance zones. We draw the attendance zones. When we open new schools or have to consolidate schools, we deal with all of those situations in those meetings. We do enrollment projections. We keep all the data on facilities and infrastructure, their conditions, their deferred maintenance, all of those type of things. And the tail end of that is we deal with all our district real estate.
Wow.
Well, can I make a joke here?
Make the joke. Come on.
I will make
it's
a
your
joke.
show.
The last time we talked about infrastructure planning, Michelle was the one. How did that story go? Why don't you tell it for yourself? Because it is comical.
I don't know if I remember it.
You don't know if you remember. So this is where I remember laughing at Michelle, because she helps. She always helps around the thinking, the data driving, and understanding how we get to making decisions with data. And Michelle, she made a joke. She said the last superintendent, he just dropped the plan, and the next day he was gone. So that's Michelle. He made Michelle drop the plan, right?
Wow.
So,
everybody says he dropped the plan and left, but that's not the case. He gave me the plan, I dropped the plan, and then he left.
Definitely.
Okay.
So look, we like to joke with Michelle to say, hey, Michelle's been around and seen a lot of different plans of infrastructure, and she's just a wealth of knowledge. So.
All right. Well, speaking of this infrastructure plan, you know, we've heard about it. We've heard some talk about it. You've been in depth with it. The school board have been talking about it. But I'm glad that this show is going to revolve around that. So, you know, can you give us that overview of this infrastructure plan so we can set the stage for the remainder of the show?
You know, I really want to first say just thank you to the board. Really thank you for our infrastructure chair who's joined us today, Mr. Kevin Woods, who's been around. I think there's always, from my perspective, a discussion around competing priorities. It always starts there. Even when engaging with the board members, we're always talking about what our district should look like, what their district should look like, what different schools should look like, just the competing priorities on when you go in a building, what should be the experience of a student? So is the experience of a student walking into a building, should you be worried about the roofing, the HVAC, understanding, you know, their needs in that particular school versus another school? So I want to say we're always talking about competing priorities in unlimited or limited rather funds. And so when we think about infrastructure and just a goal, we want our students to have an experience like no other. They should have the experiences like your municipal school districts, your global school districts, where you walk into their schools and you want to learn, you want to be there. So we did an infrastructure tour, and I'll get back to the goal of it, Saturday, and it was just so enlightening to the members who did the tour, where they would go visit one school, and it was a total different experience and environment from when they walked into our Parkway Village School, which is a brand new school. So number one, it's about the exposure of our students and ensuring that they have an environment that's conducive to learning, but they're able to compete with the global environment. And we've talked about infrastructure in more of a siloed approach. When I say siloed, I would say that we'll take a couple schools, we'll go advocate for funding because they have the highest needs. But what if we think about having a comprehensive plan? We have over 200 facilities.
200?
200 facilities. So walking into a room to advocate for the needs of our buildings, our students, and not necessarily advocating in a way where you're piecemealing and talking about a selection of small needs. Let's talk about all of our schools, our students, their needs, and not just the building, about the programming as well. We want to make sure that we have a comprehensive plan that is conducive to ensuring that our students have what they deserve in their learning environments and also their programs. And so I won't go on and on. I keep going, but I got some partners here that can help me out.
Oh, yeah, they ready. I know they ready. They
out.
ready to talk. They ready.
So,
they ready.
Listen, Mr. Woods has been around to really help and drive kind of the thinking. He's the board member that always pushes on, the thinking of how we can do more for our students, and not in a limited way. So I definitely value his opinion, because he's always pushing us to say, when you think about
push,
just,
he gonna push.
Well, everybody knows that. Just, look, tune in to the board meetings to see all these pushing. But I'll turn it over to you to talk about.
I appreciate it, Superintendent. It is all out of love for the work, love for our children. John, I often think about when I signed on to say yes to chairing this committee. The first thought was, is this just another plan that's going to sit on the desk, right?
Right.
We've seen plans before, and then I'm reminded. I don't want to age myself too much, but you remember we used to get the Sears catalog, Christmas catalog.
Sir. Yes, sir.
It's that season, right?
Wait a minute.
And so, so you get that big book, and then your parents let you go through and circle all the things that if money was unlimited, and you would circle all type of pages, right? You would go through that list. But in reality, you may, if you're fortunate, if you're blessed enough, you may get one or two of those items, right?
Right.
And so I think too often these plans allow us to dream, but you don't see the realization of those dreams. And so we have to come to a moment to where we can produce real outcomes for kids. And I think what you'll see different about what we're going through now, this journey, is where this plan belongs to the community, not just to the district. This community is not something that's just going to be dropped on the desk of board members, but board members go along on that ride with the superintendent, push and pull throughout the process. I think one of the first questions you'll see us ask in the subcommittee meetings is, who's not here? Who should be in the room that's not in the room?
Right.
And then to make sure that we're getting a holistic approach to what matters, because all of our communities are different, right? And so how do we create something special to where communities say, we got to have that, and we're willing to run through walls to make it happen? So that's what I'm most excited about. I think this is going to be a plan that doesn't sit on the desk, but that actually get implemented. So, yeah, that's why we're here.
All right, and Ms. Stewart, like when you hear a comprehensive plan like this, does your mind get to, okay, this on me and my department and my team? Do you start like, okay, we got to go through all these schools and look at data and years past? What went through your mind when you started hearing about this plan?
I eat, sleep, and drink this stuff.
Oh, good. That's the kind of people we need on the team right there.
I love this. This is what I live for.
Okay.
So in past times when we've done, I constantly have this data, and I'm updating it every year. I'm constantly updating utilizations and capacities and enrollments, and monitoring where we have growth and where we don't, and residential developments all over the city, and where we might need more space or less space in one of our schools. Running this district is like running a small city.
Oh, for sure. That's right. I'm glad she said that. Yes.
The fourth largest city in Tennessee, right?
Right.
So we've got all these buildings that we've got to monitor. We've got all of this infrastructure. We've got all of these families. So just like Board Member Woods was saying this time, we're bringing in politicians, we're bringing in economic development leaders, we're bringing in healthcare leaders, we're bringing in big thinkers, we're bringing in parents and students and board members and all the community, so that they all get some input, because this city, to run this city successfully, we need everybody on board. So I'm excited.
Good.
That's
Good.
right.
And hearing all this input, Superintendent, what has been some of the feedback? Since you got all this input, I know y'all listening and, you want to hear everybody, but what's been some of the feedback from the steering committee?
So I have to start off by laughing to say that the board is definitely supportive, and this guy here is really supportive. But my first question to all of them was, hey, do you really want to do this? Is this something that we really want to take on right now? And they were so supportive to say, Toni, it's the right work. It's the right things that we should be focusing on for our kids. And when we go and show up to advocate, and speaking of that feedback, when we go to the county commission, when we talk about the city advocating more in the state, definitely supporting us on funding, the feedback, number one, from the board has been they're supportive. They've even given a resolution to support the work so that no matter who and what takes on this body, that work lives beyond us. So that's number one. I want to say that. So that's the biggest difference of this plan, just the feedback, the support from the board. I believe they're partners in the work. Number two, when I go to advocate for funding, we got a lot of, and I'm going to plug in, we got a lot of former board members that understand this work at the county commission. Their feedback is, Toni, definitely if it's comprehensive, if it's representative of our neighborhoods, we definitely want to continue to give funding and support as well. But that whole portion around comprehensive needs has been the biggest thing. So Mr. Woods is over our steering committee, and you should hear some of the feedback that we've given. And I'll go ahead and say it. I'm going to be unapologetic that when we've done past plans, sometimes we hadn't been so thoughtful if there was a school to work with community partners and making sure that we don't even blight a community. And so some of the ideas that those community partners have talked about is affordable housing. And a lot of this stuff is just being researched and thought through critically. But we are even working with partners that have, like more for Memphis, for instance, they're talking about community development, economic development, culture. When we think about just planning for our buildings and our students, sometimes we leave out the arts and the enrichment.
Right.
Ensuring that we have health and well-being, right? Just really even looking at the justice and safety as we're talking about community violence in this arena. How do we support our students during some of the, when the after-school programming to ensure that they have, that they're busy, right? That we continue to engage them after hours. Right. And so a lot of the feedback from these stakeholders have been just mind-blowing. And everyone's really excited about plugging in to figure out how do we do this and looking at other cities. Like, this is not something that's new. We can definitely go out and look at your Detroit, Michigans, and different cities where they've taken as a school district and worked with their community partners to ensure that one, we're covered. So for me, this plan is about hope for this community, not necessarily just about our school district.
And how does Memphis Shelby County Schools look compared to some of these other school districts? When you say you look at a Detroit, is that a school district that's kind of comparable to us here?
Well, Detroit has taken on infrastructure, and they're really being creative and working. Now, what I will say about Memphis, and I'm going to smile to say I'm excited about our new city leadership that's coming on board, and I'm smiling, Mr. Woods, like, where are you going with this? One thing I will say about just studying other cities and their school districts, they don't take a siloed approach to our youth and our future. And so I will say that, I'm hopeful for partnerships now that we have a shift in leadership in the city to ensure that, our kids are the primary focus and investing in them to make sure that they understand that we won't get any of this stuff right. We won't get crime right. We won't get any of the things that we're trying to do from an economic standpoint in this city until you start back with our youth and investing in our youth. And that starts back with really them showing up, being, number one, prepared to learn, but also an environment that is welcoming for them. Who wants to come into a school where, there's the roof caving in, or if there's HVACs, or there are different things. And I think it's a symptom of just underfunding just education in Memphis overall.
All right, and Mr. Woods, you know a lot of people in this city, and you being over this committee, when you hear feedback from some of your friends or some people that you've done business with, hearing that input, do you take it as face value, or like this your friend and they telling you, well, yeah, we want that business, or we want to be able to work side by side with you? How is it sitting in that seat, you knowing a lot of people, you have influence, but being able to put the influence to the side and be a listener to some of these people, as Soup said, that from around the city that want to help?
I think Superintendent hit on it perfectly, John, which is that when you sit back and listen to the passion that so many in our community have, particularly about how we improve communities, what are the needs specifically of those communities? Is it a healthcare clinic? Is it senior living? Is it a sports field? In addition to the school building itself, what other asset may be needed in those communities? And those are things where you hear community partners saying, hey, if we could start over, here's something that we would advocate for this community. If we could, have a community room built on or annex building, here's what we would want it to look like. And I think those are the things that when you listen and stop coming and starting with your own ideas.
You know, that's what we used to. We like to do that. We want to start from the jump.
We like to tell you from the jump, here's what we got for you. And we just need you to nod and agree.
Right.
And so I think what you're seeing for the first time through this experience is that there are a lot of great ideas out there. And then when you put all these ideas up, you start to think like, okay, now if we go deeper in the community, what can we do together? And as Superintendent mentioned, how do we create the advocacy for that? When you think about our assets and the buildings, we stopped, and again, to Michelle and others' leadership a while ago, we stopped just giving away stuff, right? Like
we stopped that. We cut that out.
We didn't
was
just
giving away a lot of stuff.
You just don't get to come in and say, hey, I like that building on Main Street there. I don't care about those properties in inner city communities, but I want that high value property and I want it for free. And we're going to do a special development project that doesn't benefit kids. Wow. And so I think what you're seeing now from this administration is leaning in and saying, what resources do we have that we could partner on, that we could do creative things with? But ultimately, it comes back to how we overall benefit students.
And have y'all heard some like real nice ideas, or Michelle or Mr. Woods? Have y'all heard some interesting ideas from some of these committees? Just because I know last week Tito said some interesting things as well, and I'm sure I would like to get y'all input. Yeah. What have y'all heard?
So we did hear some interesting things in the steering committee, and Soup mentioned some of those when she was going down that list, but what I'm really excited about is when we get to these subcommittees, because the subcommittees, we're going to the community, right? Okay. The people who live there.
Okay.
So that's what we're real excited about, is talking about, here's an asset map. I can show you where all the parks are and the police stations, the fire stations, the libraries. Now you tell me what else you have in your communities that are strengths, and then what's missing. What else would you like to see? If we have a building that's half full, what would be good in your community? So that's the part I'm really excited about, getting in with the community to learn what they think.
Okay.
And John, if I can just follow there real quick, because I think it's twofold, right, Superintendent? I think we're talking about additional resources for underutilized facilities where we can come in and maybe create something that the community wants. And then I think we're also talking about what are the academic infusion we can put in existing schools that we know that are needed, that have been missing there. What are additional resources that we can build on? We talk about lighting. We talk about new sports fields and stadiums, and getting the community excited about and drawing the correlation that better facilities equal better outcome for students.
That's right.
As a new cyclist, I can tell you how fast you go on a new bike versus an old bike. Like you suddenly, you get a new pair of shoes, you feel different. Like you suddenly want to run faster. And you got to believe that these kids, when they walk into a building that's newly painted, that's well lit with the new sports field, we've invested in students, and you get them those new sports uniform, how they feel when they step on the field. As Dion says, you look good, you play good, you play good. They pay good, right?
And
so as we think through that, John, and then and Superintendent also mentioned about looking at this globally and making these investments, or at least showing a holistic plan. But we've seen examples. You all showed us a presentation on Northside. They've been getting a lot of coverage.
Yeah, I heard that.
Well,
heard about that.
Well, that virtual village that's happening at Northside High and in that community would not happen but for this board saying, yes, we want to partner with this community partner to then go out and create something special for the community. And so I think you see examples with the old Melrose High School and where it's senior living and a library. So those repurposing of older assets with community making that call.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think that's the biggest takeaway for me. Piggybacking off Mr. Woods, is that in bringing the community along and making sure that they understand that this is not a closure plan. A lot of times when we have historically talked about the infrastructure of Memphis Shelby County schools, it has just been, we're closing these schools.
Right, that's it, off top.
No, so for me, it's about investing in the schools that we have, and there will be efficiencies that we have to look across to look at even our landscape of buildings, our schools, our underutilization, which is why our human map is always in the room when we're talking about this plan. But definitely, if that's the case where we have to consolidate or if we have to look at schools for reuse, how do we bring the community along to understand what they want in the community, right? Not just a vacant building that sits there and, is blighted, but really what can we do to enhance our students' learning environments and the community? Because whatever happens in the schools is sometimes come from the communities and vice versa. So how do we protect that, So I think that's the biggest thing that I want to say that I'm excited excited about. Michelle mentioned the subcommittees.
And because that's where I was
Yeah.
going next.
So
What's
Mr.
the
Woods, well,
expectations
yeah,
of
let
that?
me break it down. So Mr. Woods, it has a steering committee. The steering committee meets, and now I think we're on an as-needed schedule to talk really about the data. So Mr. Woods brought up the academic performance, our goals. What do we want to see in classrooms, right? We talked a little bit about just even the data of our labs, our facilities. Think about our CCT, which is our old VOTEC.
Old VOTEC, right.
That's what
it
they
didn't
used
go
to,
nowhere.
It didn't go
just
nowhere,
CCTE
right?
now.
So, ensuring that our students, and when you think about the buildings, have the labs that they deserve, right? So really thinking about the STEM labs as well. Whitehaven is a community that's recently got the advocating for funding for STEM labs. But what would that look like across all of our schools, right? Just so really just, thinking through what does a community look like from the steering committee's perspective. These guys and girls or ladies and gentlemen, rather, that they are powerful in their thinking. You have members from the chamber there and just business community members and strong, even faith-based community leaders that, really are giving a thought around, all right, look at the academic data. Maybe instead of taking a school, ask why the academic performance needs to be improved. What's missing in the school so that we can invest in it? And so that's kind of the role of the steering committee. They're looking at that data, making decisions or recommendations. Be clear, recommendations for the board, right?
Okay.
And then from there, you have subcommittees. So 9 subcommittees were announced that were tailored and recommendations were made by board members. So Mr. Woods developed his subcommittee. Each individual developed their subcommittee. You got your parents there. You got elementary school principal, middle school, high school principal on there. Have parents. You have students. You even have county commissioners, city councilmen. It's reflective. Everybody that's coming to the table. And guess what subcommittee is first?
Which one?
Can you guess? I mean, come on. Can you guess, John? Come on. Are we reviving here?
Yes, ma'am.
Whitehaven.
Oh,
so the Whitehaven committee.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I
The University of Whitehaven.
The
yes,
University
ma'am.
of Whitehaven. And so that first subcommittee will occur to just really think about all the schools and what's important, particularly in that community as a start, is you have your achievement school districts that are coming back.
Okay.
You have, your Fairleigh, Whitehaven. You have, definitely Mitchell. You have those schools. And really, what does that look like from academic programming standpoint, a building usage standpoint, and just really overall what's best for the community. So that's first, yeah.
So, Mr. Woods, with all these folks, she said, coming into the room, coming to the table.
This is like 90 people.
Yeah, this a lot of folks coming to the table.
Yeah.
I mean, once you get them at the table, what's next? What's the expectation? Because if you got them at the table, it seems like some good things can come out of that if everybody's on the same page.
Absolutely. Well, as she mentioned, you have decision makers in the room also, right?
Right.
So you think about, imagine taking the county commission along with you on this journey, and suddenly they're at the table from the beginning. So you're not just taking them a plan that they hadn't seen. So you now have your county commissioners that's backing what the community asked for. Their constituents. These are the things that they want to see out of those subcommittees. And so I think you create advocates there. And so you talk about 90 people. Imagine a plan that's been delivered by community-wide, where the buy-in is there from the beginning.
Yeah.
Imagine that army that creates of advocates that's coming in and said, we've seen this, we believe in it, and we think you need to support it. And so I think part of the work is it makes it harder for board members to retreat from a plan that the community has asked us to deliver on. And then also when it comes to going before funding bodies and asking for support for these needed resources. It's not a good feeling when you before the county commission and and they're voicing complaints about facilities, about infrastructure. But it's a different story when the administration has taken them on tours, they've seen it with their own eyes,
right.
And then you go and advocate for additional capital dollars. And when they vote up or down, whether or not we receive those resources, they're at least doing it with a line of sight on what our real challenges are.
Not what somebody told them or they heard, they saw.
Absolutely. And so that's what I'm most excited about. And again, I started the conversation about subcommittees that we may find out that there are people that are needed at the table that aren't. I think Superintendent was smart asking board members. They're on the ground. They have to run for election every cycle. And so they said, these are the people we believe that can help advance and advocate. But if we determine, at least I can speak for District 4, that someone is missing from the room, we'll make sure that they get included.
That's
Wow,
right.
Yep.
wow.
Right.
So I mean, that's a big thing right there, because to have all those people at the table, it seems like some good can come out of that.
I do believe
it
so.
seems like
I really believe so. Let me tell you why. Sometimes we get afraid of engagement and stakeholder engagement, but I think in this case, this plan belongs to the community. And I think that engagement will help educate. So the biggest thing that's different for me, and looking back historically over the plans, I think a couple years ago you had a consulting firm at the beginning of the merger who looked at the plan and said, "Oh, these are the numbers," but they had no ties to Memphis. They really didn't understand the community, and so that plan failed. Right? I think you had other, just renditions of the plan, and it really it missed the stakeholder engagement. And so for me, I think that's the success of making sure that we, one, understand the needs. So Mr. Woods talked a lot about, advocating, but how can you support something you don't truly understand the needs for? So for me, I sleep easy at night being very unapologetic about expressing and educating the community on what's needed. And so like you said, when we go ask for what's needed for our students, then at least we knew that you understood comprehensively. And I want to jump back to the need, because a lot of people hear $500 million and they just shut down deferred maintenance, right? So think about, and I want to educate outside of academic programming and the needs of our students, just really when you go into a building, and if you do not give the maintenance to the building, just like me, I forgot to do preventive maintenance on my HVAC system at home. Guess what?
You're going to have a problem.
I turned on the heating and didn't turn on. So, definitely you need funding to support our infrastructure and over our 200 facilities. So if it's the preventive maintenance is not there over time, what we're finding is our 100-plus-year-old buildings, they're falling apart. And so I think just really helping educate everyone on the needs, one, and then understanding that $500 million of deferred maintenance is where I am.
So, but, and this is for all three of you all, the common person here, $500 million, and they think
it blows their
a
mind.
Whole lot of money,
Yes.
which it is.
Yeah.
It is.
It's not enough.
But for all what y'all been talking about so far,
Yep.
I'm just calculating in my head. I'm like, okay, 200 buildings, 100 buildings plus. It seemed like that number, 500 million, seems like a small drop in the bucket. And Michelle's nodding her head like, because she know. What you think about that, man?
No, I think you're right. As Superintendent indicated, it's not enough. When you think about that many facilities and spreading that across the largest district in the state, you realize that our kids deserve more.
Right.
And when you go to visit some of our suburban partners' facilities, you quickly realize that why can't our kids have those same resources? So that's the conversation that we're having. That's the right conversation. And then it took board members a while to understand that we got to move away from what things cost and what's the return on those investments, right? When you start thinking about what students do you get when you start building new facilities, how does academic start to increase when students are in well-lit facilities, and how many new teachers are wanting to come into buildings that are bright and well-resourced? Those are the conversations we should be having, which is, what does it mean if we, what's the impact if we don't do this, right? And so I think that's the conversation we're trying to move to, and I think you're going to see positive returns yield from shifting the conversation. And we've been guilty of saying, well, if I can't do for this district, then I do for none. And you gave the example, like, think about it at your house, right? Like, you say, okay, I got 2.5 baths, and you get a quote, and it was like, oh, wait a minute, you do nothing. And after a while, you realize, well, I'm going to start with the half bath.
Right,
And then I'm going to work my way up. So what we're
Right.
simply saying is that we need to take a holistic plan to our funding bodies, to our business partners, and say what is possible for students, with the understanding that if you gave Michelle $500 million, she can't build all new facilities overnight, right? And so this plan, as Superintendent indicated, is what we're saying that the ask should be, and that you'll see this come to fruition over time.
But it seemed like the ask, we can back it up from they going on those tours and seeing like, so y'all was there,
Yep.
you saw it, you saw the video, you seen everything.
Yep.
So your response may be a little different when you come to ask
and
for
we're
it.
even our board, thank God, they invested in a facilities assessment.
Good, that's what I
Yeah,
wanted.
yeah, okay, yeah,
She like,
yeah,
that's my
yeah.
part right there.
So
That's it.
yeah, I'll turn it over to Michelle, but I will say, just looking at our facilities, because you talked about that $500 million deferred maintenance number, it seems like a lot, right? But I want to put some facts out there. Look, I'm a factual based woman, so you know, if you look across our average age of just our suburban partners and the national average around a lifespan of a school building, it's around 40 years.
Just a school.
40
years.
national, right? And then I
okay.
think our suburban partners maybe 36 to 40. Now that one, you don't quote me on that
Okay.
one. But I do know with Memphis Shelby County Schools, our average lifespan of our building is far exceeded. We're at 64 years. And so I know that we have 100-plus-year-old buildings as well, up to a tune of 33. So imagine just, you know, trying to figure out what do you fix first on some of these buildings. And that is why we are having a facilities assessment. And Michelle has been asking for a new facilities assessment. And that's where your $500 million number will be backed up. And it may come out to be more. So Michelle, why don't
It's
you talk a
probably
little?
going to come out to be more, but yeah, I'm real excited. So the board approved a contract with this vendor we've started going through some schools. We've gone through about 5 at this point, so they're looking at everything. So we're talking about doorknobs,
Top to bottom.
floors, windows, paint, HVAC systems, roofs, all of this, parking lots, fencing. I mean, everything you can think of when you look at a building, every piece of it. And then from that, we're going to have a cost of how much it costs right now, what you need to spend this year to make that building up to snuff, right?
Right.
So it needs paint and it needs new rails on the windows that are on that side of it, right? So that's, and then they give you a 5-year, what you need in 5 years, what are you going to have to spend? And then in 10 years, what are you going to have to spend? And that's how you get your deferred maintenance number, the 500
That number
million.
goes up.
Yeah,
That
it
seems-
does.
It goes up.
But then here's the thing: and I love this. It's not Superintendent Toni's plan. It's not Board Member Wood's plan. It is backed up by experts who bring to the table a comprehensive review. So it gets a little harder to say, well, y'all made that number up. Or you guys made that number up at Memphis Shelby County.
Because I know Brother Woods is like, don't just be giving me no numbers now.
Oh,
You got to
man.
give me some action
I'm telling you,
facts.
I can't
Don't-
get too much past him.
Well, and this one's going to be, so every time we fix something or do something in a building, if we go update an HVAC, it goes in the system and it updates. So it tells you an HVAC's lifespan. If this is supposed to last 20 years and it's already on year 12, we know we've only got 8 years left. We need to put some money in that thing so we have a new one, right? So, and every time we update, this database updates, so we constantly know how much our deferred maintenance number is, exactly how much at each building. It's
can back
really
it up.
exciting. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Let me give you this the last one. The impact of a plan like this is bigger than the district. So what other supports do we need from our city, county, state, and federal partners?
you want to,
Oh, we'll let you start.
Okay, so definitely, you know, I often understand the competing priorities in the city, just even the county and the state, right? But we often come back to education is our number one priority. So I want leaders, I want our community to really plug in and understand the need.
Right.
And so when you think about what we need you first to be engaging in our students, engaging in their needs before we jump to talk about some of the negative media stories that our community is having.
love
right?
to jump. You know
we
we
love
love
to
to
jump.
jump.
But
We love to
first, you know,
jump.
well, it's fine to jump. We're accountable here at Memphis Shelby County Schools, but first understand the needs. Number 2, funding. I think that there's no other acts that we can say that when you invest in our students, you're investing in our future. You're investing in this particular community. So for me, those are the 2 things that we definitely need. But really, also your voice, right? So when we bake out these plans, we ask, you know, members of the community to be involved and engaged. And then later on, everyone has an aha moment, right? So,
Right.
oh, well, I didn't hear about that. So
Right, I
I
didn't
think
know.
that we've been very intentional this particular year to ensure that everybody's plugged in on, hey, we're talking about our community, so please feel free to engage, you know, and there'll be other opportunities as well. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
No, I wouldn't add much to that except for what we discussed earlier, which is taking our partners along on a journey, right? I think if you look
That's
at
nice, yeah.
the conversations that we've had over the last many months, we're investing in new hospitals, we're investing in new sports facilities, and being a part of some of those conversations, I know just how important it is, John, to make the case over and over and over again.
Right.
No longer is it okay to just show up at the county commission when summoned to give a budget presentation or for our annual ask. It is taking them on a journey of what it means specifically in their districts, in their community. What does it mean for property tax values when you start going into communities and you're improving in the school in the area around that school? What does it mean for more families choosing to move inside of Shelby County instead of the mass exodus, right? So when you paint the business picture of population growth, new sales tax revenue, more students choosing to have a positive impact on the community as opposed to a negative, you start to see light bulb goes off in investors and say, hey, that's something I can get behind.
Right.
And if nothing else, John, if we don't do anything else, we're going to eliminate the excuse of a funder saying, well, we hadn't seen a full plan, so therefore I'm going to push it away from the table. We're going to be able to say, here's the plan.
Here's the plan.
You've been with us from the beginning. Now we need your support. And so we're going to do our part. We're showing that we can invest now where possible. Superintendent, the great thing about her being a CFO first is she's pushing the team to find resources to do what's necessary now for kids and in our facilities, and then to be able to produce a master plan that shows, hey, here's what's possible when we all row in the same direction. We think that our local, state, and federal plan, particularly when you start talking about the holistic approach of like what resources that we don't know about, right? That may be out there when we start putting these plans together and the economic impact it could have on Shelby County.
Okay, all right. Do you want to touch on that? Are you good? They said enough.
They got it.
They got it?
They got it.
All right, and I think that's enough tea for today, Superintendent
Well,
and
thank you for
guests.
my
Is
tea
there
today.
any closing remarks, anything you want to remind our parents? And one thing I would say, ladies and gentlemen, when they say the students walking into the building and want to see it nice, I think the same thing goes for teachers.
Oh, wow.
Right?
You know
I
what,
want
John?
to say that. I just wanted to
No,
put
that's
that out
how
there.
we will close. I think for the most part, like you said, it's not necessarily about just our students. It's about our teachers, our staff. Everyone wants an environment that's conducive to one learning and wanting to be there. And for me, I want to close with this plan is not necessarily a Memphis Shelby County Schools plan. This is a community plan, and it gives us all hope and seeing the future in our students at Memphis Shelby County Schools. So that's my tea today.
That's the tea today.
That's the tea.
Thank you so much. Thank y'all so much for stopping by, being guests. Had a great time. I think the people was going to get some good information. You educated the community today, and that's what's needed because they hear numbers, words, but I think y'all went a little deeper so they can't say, I don't know what deferred maintenance is. I don't know what a comprehensive plan is. I don't know what infrastructure is. So y'all did a great job today. Thank y'all so much.
All
Appreciate
right,
all you
Brother
do,
John.
All right, appreciate
Thank
it. All right,
you.
ladies
Thank
and gentlemen, there was that educational tea that was dropped by our superintendent today here on 88.5 FM. Now let's get back to the music. Y'all be safe out there. We are 88.5 FM.